You've got questions, we've got answers. Welcome to the Therapist Question Box, where trauma-trained therapists tackle real questions from real people. I'm your host, Lindsay Schiss, bringing you grounded insights you can actually use, brought to you by Therapy Utah. Welcome back to another episode of the Therapist Question Box. We're here to answer your tough mental health questions, so ask away. This one is about anxiety, something we all experience from time to time, and is something not just anxiety, but differentiating between anxiety and a gut feeling. And so we are here with Whittney Wakefield. Whittney, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. This is one of my favorite places to be. So I'm excited to be here.
Thanks so much. Well, our listeners love you, so it's awesome to have you back. This question is about the difference between anxiety and maybe our gut feeling. So here's the question. I can't tell if I'm having anxiety or if my gut is trying to warn me. How do I know the difference? So first of all, I think many of us have felt this way. Like,
absolutely.
Is this anxiety or is this like, there's a premonition, there's intuition here? Mm-hmm. What is the difference? So when you hear that, what's your first thought?
My initial gut feeling, I guess we could say,
touche,
is to say that kind of look at anxiety itself and where does anxiety come from and kind of where does anxiety focus go. Okay. And our focus with anxiety tends to be very future focused, very much like what's going to go wrong in the future based. And so if we can get an idea of what is anxiety's goal, then we can kind of see, is this me so focused on the future? Am I looking too far forward, or am I a very specific in the moment, very present kind of intuition feeling to kind of lead and guide you?
So what you just said, I think is really helpful. So anxiety is future focused, but gut feeling may be more present focused, right? So differentiating between those two things is, okay, am I focused on the here and now, or am I just worried about the future? Okay, go ahead.
And I think with like worrying about the future, I think sometimes our gut can bring up things about the future we need to look at and be aware of. But that doesn't mean that there's all of this fear and concern and all of these things are going to go wrong. I think our gut is very centering. And even if we're experiencing feelings that like feel like they're kind of fighting, our gut can kind of still lead as long as we're in tune with, does this feel like it's right for me? And does it bring a sense of peace if I choose to do this now?
I love that it doesn't bring a sense of peace. When I think about anxiety, I mean, I have been an anxious person most of my life. I feel like I'm a recovering anxiety sufferer, and yet I still have it. It's not gone, right? But when you said that, I thought, you know what, that's interesting, because for me, what anxiety feels like in my body is different than when I feel like, ooh, there's something that my gut just feels right about. Like when I think about anxiety, I think, oh, I have like pressure in my chest and I have knots in my stomach and my shoulders feel tense. That's different than when I feel like something, like there's a gut intuition. I feel differently. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think even sometimes when my gut's trying to warn me about something, it's a different warning feeling than just like this pressure on my chest and like my brain going crazy. It's a subtle nod and a subtle hint to get me to go in a direction. Even if there's like you might want to pay attention to this kind of feeling, there's this, but it brings a sense of like calmness and peace and like, oh, this makes sense. Like, I remember a few weeks ago, I was trying to make a decision about what to do with my evening, and I had a bunch of things planned. I'm kind of a crazy person when it comes to my social life. I go from event to event to event to event, and my friends are like, how in the world do you do this? And I just like people too much. So I think it's just part of
keep doing it.
Just part of my
party girl.
Just part of my thing. And I had like plans to go with my friend to a like house party that was going on. I had plans to get together with a friend, but I was like coming home from work and I had started to get the biggest headache of my life. I was so just worn out from getting sick the week before. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And something that's like super important to me is like keeping my commitments. And so I found myself sitting here like, what do I do? Like I have these commitments that I made with my roommate, with my friend. And now I'm finding myself getting super, like not feeling super good. And I was like, well, my anxiety started to kick in and be like, well, you made a promise to your friend, like you need to keep that promise and all these things. But I remember just like sitting there and this idea of like, you just need to take a night in, just slowly kept coming to the surface. And I remember like, I called my grandma and I was like, what do I do? Like, I want to keep this commitment. Like, what's important? And she's like, well, Whitney, like, what do you feel inclined to do? And I think that idea of like, what do you feel inclined to do can kind of help bring that like intuitive side to the surface a little bit more and kind of kick back against the anxiety, because intuitively we all know what we need. But sometimes our anxiety or our fears or our worries about what's going to happen if I don't do something come in and they take over that intuitive side of us. And so I remember sitting there and I kept talking to her and I was like, I just feel like I need a night in. But then all of a sudden my anxiety would kick up and be like, but what about this? And what about this? And I was like, but I'm just so tired. I just need a night in.
You needed grandma.
And I did.
You needed grandma to remind you.
Yes.
Like, let's bring it back, right?
Yes. And so I remember just sitting there and instinctively my gut kept telling me what I needed. But I was so worried with the anxiety that was coming up that I had to take a second, get a little bit of a reality check from someone that wasn't in my head to help me talk through it. But the entire conversation, my gut knew what it needed.
Yeah. You know what, though, I think is interesting? In addition to getting grandma's help,
yes,
you also, though, recognize you had competing values.
Yes.
You had some things that really matter to you, keeping your commitments. You love being social. But then your body was saying, hey, I'm not okay. We're not feeling well. So let's shut some things down and keep it a night in. I think that's also a little tricky because anxiety can, yes, come on. But there's also this part of you that felt like these things all matter to me. Honoring myself and keeping my commitments and being social. So living in that space of trying to balance, like, oh, actually there's competing demands, there's competing values that are happening. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, 100%. And I think what helped me stay in touch with that gut feeling of what I really needed was, okay, well, what's my first commitment? Like I have this commitment. I want to keep my commitments. That's super important to me. But my number one commitment and the only thing I can do is take care of me. And so I had to like honor me in that moment and what intuitively and what my gut was saying I needed. Because if I went against that, then I'm going to start questioning my gut. And that's a really hard space to be in. And when you start to question yourself, but when you get those little nudges and that idea keeps coming to mind, it's like a little, like a whisper and like a gentle nudge or like a friend coming up behind you and touching your shoulder, being like, hey, I'm here. I think those little nudges and those little turns are really what our body is trying to communicate to us. But when the anxiety kicks in, it's hard to feel those little nudges. But if you can take a second, center yourself, come back to the present, because anxiety goes so far to the future, like we were talking about, then it's easy to get in touch and to feel that like centering feeling, just even by just a few deep breaths of like, okay, acknowledging that I'm feeling this big feeling right now. I don't know what to do. Then taking a deep breath and being like, okay, it's okay to feel this way because these things are important to me. And then dropping down a little bit further and being like, okay, those things are important to me, but what do I need? And what does my body trying to tell me?
Yes. And what in this moment is most important, right? Like what is going on that is most important, right? So as you're thinking about this, I want you to just, I want us to explore a little bit more where we stop trusting our gut. Because at some point we decided that our gut was maybe not our friend or that it didn't have our best interests. And it makes me wonder where did we stop trusting our gut? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have a lot of thoughts on that. But I think we have had situations in our lives where our gut's trying to communicate something to us, but then we have so many voices around us that are maybe differing from what our gut's trying to say. And they're louder oftentimes than what our gut's trying to tell us. And the loud voices oftentimes take the cake of what's going to be the one we listen to, unless we take that quiet moment to ourselves. Yes. And it's a opportunity when we take that moment to recenter, to learn to trust ourselves again.
Yes.
And being able to trust yourself and believe in yourself is one of the most beautiful things we can do in our lives. And anxiety is going to be there. It's just part of us, whether we are diagnosed with anxiety or not. It's just a part of being human that we get anxious moments. And so if we can take a moment and recenter and take a second to really believe that you have your best interest at heart and you're not going to do something to hurt someone else intentionally, then you can trust yourself and know that, okay, I have good intentions here and I'm going to trust myself enough to make a decision that might be hard, but it's in line with who I am and the person I want to be. So I'm going to move forward.
I love that. I love that reminder of self-trust. Like when we, and taking a beat, right? When you're saying just, if you can take a moment, then we can tap back into that self-trust. But we've had a lot of loud voices that have been telling us this is the right thing or this is right. In fact, I was thinking when I have worked with clients and I will say, what's your value around that? When they come in with a problem, well, what is your value? And they'll say, well, I've always been taught this, or I've been told this, or religiously, this is what I believe. And I will say, okay, is that important to you? And honestly, it usually takes them a minute to really go, is that just what I've been told? Is that what I've been taught? And what matters to me around that? And sometimes it takes a minute to actually get really clear, like, this is what matters to me. And so I'm honoring that. So I think it's doing some reprogramming as well.
Yeah, because for whatever reason, we have learned all these survival mechanisms to keep ourselves safe. And that's what anxiety is there for. It's to keep us safe. And so when our gut's trying to speak to us, sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we are safe. We're not in a place where anything's going to hurt us, and physically remind ourselves that we're safe. But we can't logic ourselves out of it until our emotion has kind of calmed down a little bit. And so we have to remind ourselves that we're safe and then do something to help our emotion kind of come down a little bit, whether that's grounding yourself with like 5 senses or taking a second and imagining the place you feel the most safe. And even just that little moment of like, oh, I feel super safe here, then it can kind of help calm your body down and recenter. So you can actually take that beat and say, okay, I'm feeling anxiety right now. Is this so future focused that it's just anxiety? Or is this a second where my gut and my instinct and my intuition is trying to tell me something? So once we can calm down our brain, remind ourselves that we're safe, emotionally reconnect, then I think we're able to actually see, okay, this is really what I need. And oftentimes I've found in my life that usually when I'm like able to make a decision that's intuitive, I take a sigh afterwards. Like I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Because your body is able to release that energy and you're finally able to the point where you're like, okay, yeah, that's right for me. And I need to do that.
Yes. Calm down, emotionally reconnect. You know, I believe that. And sometimes, and by the way, I tell clients that like, if you're emotionally dysregulated, that is number one, unless there's a fire in the house.
Yes.
That is number one to get clear. What is going on for me? Right. And I had an experience on Monday, a week ago Monday, where I was just feeling so anxious and I couldn't really figure out why. And my mind was going and I was acting real chippy to everybody. I was just bugged. And I had a bunch of things to do and I had 30 minutes to do it. And I thought, Lindsay, put your money where your mouth is and go out on a walk and put your coat on. And then I had all these excuses. Well, it's cold and I have to do this. And I finally just thought, no, you're not emotionally regulated. Something is off. And I couldn't even get clear about what it was. So I put on my coat. I decided to scrap the things that I thought I needed to do. And I just started walking and I turned on my voice memo on my phone and I just started talking and I just started talking and talking. And it's amazing. I came back home in 20 minutes and nothing had changed. My circumstance was the exact same, but I felt vastly different. And I think it was what you said. I had calmed down and that I had gotten into a state of emotional regulation. I took time for myself to figure out what was going on inside of me, and it made all the difference. So I love that reminder that panic is not intuition. Feeling frustrated and chippy is not intuition. Yeah. When we're in that place, our body will tell us like, no, that's anxiety. Pay attention. Your body will tell you, right?
100%.
Always. Our body tells us. We just often don't pay attention, right?
Or we notice it, but we're not recognizing what it's trying to tell us.
Yes.
Because I think all of us know, like, I'm starting to feel a little chippy right now. I'm starting to feel a little on edge and I can't figure out why. But instead of like being in tune with our bodies and being like, oh, I'm noticing I'm feeling this and taking a second to check in, we stay in that confused state.
Right.
And so like you did, just like taking that moment and like trying to like regulate and emotionally come to center, then you were able to like be yourself again.
Yes.
And honor what you needed to do in that moment. And I think that's the thing, is the more aware we can become of what's happening to me right now, then the easier it will be to understand, is this anxiety or is this my gut?
Yes.
Because I'm aware of what's happening to my body, because our bodies often know before our brains do what's happening.
Yes. Russell Kennedy, he's the author of Anxiety RX. It's like my Bible for anxiety. He says, always your body will be the first indicator. Your brain keeps up with it. And often what happens is we ignore our body and then we go, oh, I'm having all these anxious thoughts. But your body already actually told you something is off, something is wrong. And if you notice, oh yeah, my stomach's in knots, my shoulders are tense. Yeah, something's going on there. Just pay attention to it, right?
For sure.
And I think one of the things that you said that I want to go back to is, you know what? You may not have 20 minutes like I did. You may have 30 seconds, but taking a deep breath, noticing the 5 senses and just dropping into the moment can really make the difference of making a choice out of anxiety or intuition.
Yeah.
So with that, Whitney, is there anything else that you feel like is important that our listeners hear that we haven't discussed around intuition versus anxiety?
This idea that that keeps coming to mind is, I don't think we should punish ourselves for feeling anxious when we're trying to connect with our gut, because we live in a world that unintentionally, I think, promotes anxiety because it's so busy and so going, and it doesn't give us that moment to recenter. So if we're feeling anxious, just know that you're normal and that it's okay to be feeling that way. But then when your gut tries to tell you what you need to do, trust it, because your body knows and you know exactly what you need, even if anxiety is trying to tell you one thing. But the more we listen to anxiety, the softer our gut feeling will become. And so when you're listening to your gut versus your anxiety, trust your gut, so that way your gut can be the louder voice versus anxiety being the louder voice.
I love that we, like, what we feed is what grows, right? That's with anything, be it a plant or be it anxiety. If we choose to feed our anxiety, then it will grow. Yeah. But if we also choose to feed our intuition and pay attention to it, then it's going to go, yeah, actually, she does pay attention. She does care. And we will learn to trust ourselves more.
Yep.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Whitney, for being here and your insight around anxiety versus intuition and understanding the difference. I think this is something everybody can use. And like you said, we live in an anxious world. Yep. We live in an anxious producing world. And so really getting clear on this is so valuable for everybody. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If this was helpful, please like and subscribe and share it with those that you love. And until next time, take care. That's a wrap for today on the Therapist Question Box. I'm Lindsay Schiss. Thanks for listening. And remember, every question you ask is an opportunity to learn and grow. Brought to you by Therapy Utah.
Hey, this is Kathy Kinghorn. I'm an owner at Therapy Utah. If you'd like to book with one of our trauma-trained therapists, go to www.therapyutah.org. Thanks for listening.